Seahawks fans, wherever you may be. Thanks for listening to the show. Join your hosts, Bill Alvstad and Keith Myers, as we talk Seahawks football.
Hey, hi, Seahawks fans. Welcome back to another episode of the Seahawks Playbook podcast. I'm your host, Bill Alvstad, sitting down with co-host Keith Myers, here to talk Seahawks football. Some disappointing play over the weekend saw us drop to the Los Angeles Rams for the second time this season by a score of 17-16. We had a chance in the last 10 seconds of the game to kick a game-winning field goal, essentially, by Jason Myers, and he missed to the right, so we fell to 6-4 on the season. Rams improved to 4-6 and beat us twice, which is half their win total. And we had this game in hand. We were up by double digits and going into the fourth quarter. Geno Smith went down, but on the next drive, Rick Woolen had an interception, nice interception on a long ball by Matthew Stafford. I thought the game was in hand. And then Drew Lock ended up throwing in an interception. They went down and scored, helped out by a, penalty to be able to get into the end zone. And then, with a little help with the other penalties as well. Seahawks were all told had 130 yards in penalties. It was awful. But anyway, we ended up losing this game that we shouldn't have lost. There's a variety of reasons, least of which is Jason Myers' missed field goal.
It was a 54-yard field goal. I mean,
55,
that's never
yeah. It's not a gimme for sure.
It's never
and he made a 54-yarder in the game, but those things aren't gimmies, and it shouldn't come down to that, and it shouldn't have in this game. I think one of the reasons why we lost is probably Geno Smith's injury. That means that Drew Lock came in. I don't know if that's
true, because he hadn't played well for, 2.5 quarters.
I think he played okay, but man, the offense was stagnant. It just went stagnant, and lack of third down conversions. They virtually went away from the running game. They ran twice as many pass plays in this game as they did running. Even when we were up by double digits, they continued to throw the ball. And unsuccessfully at that. And there's a lot to talk about here, because obviously the team's just not on the right track, and we've got a gauntlet of games coming up, 4 games in the next 4 games that are just season defining, including this loss. And then we go to the 49ers come to town on Thursday night, Thanksgiving. And then we traveled on the very next Thursday on a Thursday night game to the Dallas Cowboys. And then we go and visit the 49ers after that. And then the Eagles come to town. And if we can make our way somehow through that and emerge in shape to, win out or take 1 or 2 of those games, we'd be in pretty decent shape. But right now, my confidence level in this team is pretty low.
And it should be low. If we're being honest. I mean, this was, a very winnable game that wasn't won. And you're like, yeah, they went away from the running game, but they only averaged 3.2 yards per rush. And early in the game, that first big drive, they were averaging 7 yards a rush, which will tell you that when they went away from it because it stopped working. And it stopped working about when Walker got hurt.
Well, Charbonnet had a couple of runs over 10 yards, like back to back. And then the rest of the time he was like 2 yards per carry.
Mm-hmm. So, but it comes down to 5.3 yards per pass attempt. That will never win you games. That is
we should have won this terrible game.
And 33% on third down. I mean, they converted their first 4, and then after that went 1 out of 11.
Pretty dismal.
So of course you're not winning that game.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, There was a lot of things that handed that game to the Rams. I don't think the Rams did anything to win that game other than just taking advantage of opportunities.
You just hung around.
They just hung around. That's exactly right. And Seattle just kind of, as Pete Carroll put it, just did it to themselves. And that's the epitome of what happened here. We gave up 10 points on the Rams' final 2 possessions, and that was the difference. Mm-hmm. We held a double-digit lead heading into the fourth quarter, 16-7, and that was tough. I mean, they passed on 13 of 17 downs, offensive attempts to start the second half with that double-digit lead at 16-7. Keith, that's my complaint is. Well, why? What is going on there?
Well, I mean, I agree that was a problem, but the running game also wasn't working, and they were getting themselves in third and.
But even after Geno got hurt, they continued to throw the ball, and they were up by 16-7 with Drew Lock in there. That didn't make any sense to me, Keith. It just didn't. We just needed to run out the clock. We needed to run the clock.
Yeah,
and help our defense out that was getting gassed. Yeah, no, but Keith, it was working enough.
You cannot claim that the defense was getting gassed when the Seahawks had more time of possession.
Down the stretch, they were getting
the Seahawks had the ball for 5 minutes more than the Rams.
Yeah, but
this is not a case.
You go look at the snap count too, and they had like 14 or 15 players taking the vast majority of snaps. Those players were playing the entire game without really too much substitution. I don't know why, but that's the way it was. It was kind of weird.
Yeah,
I disagree with you a little bit in the sense
argument. I'm not here for that. I'm not taking that because the Seahawks had the ball for 5 minutes more than the Rams.
What changed in the last couple drives then?
Were
we just playing so conservative that we just let them go down the field?
Well, they didn't even really go down the field. They got yards because of a 45-yard pass interference play, right? And then they got 1st and goal because of another pass interference play. Like, the Rams didn't do anything on offense except for wait for Seattle to commit penalties that gave them first downs.
They had 5 first downs on penalties in this game.
Yeah. 12 accepted penalties for 130 yards. There were also 2 declined penalties.
Yeah. So what's going on with the discipline on this team? Penalties.
And some of them, I think, were like...
A couple of them
were bad. I mean, they were bad calls. But...
The hands to the face, it was a legit call. I mean, he punched him in the face, to get away from the line of scrimmage there. I'm talking about Rick Woolen. Yeah, you don't want that to be called, but that's the way the rules are written. It's not a great rule to begin with, but that was it. And then the pass interference in the end zone by Witherspoon was just as ticky-tacky as you can possibly imagine.
Oh, that was not a penalty at all.
Yeah.
The player ran into his own guy, his own teammate that was going the other direction, and fell down, and they called it on Woolen.
The only reason that I called it ticky-tacky at all is because at one point Witherspoon had him by the pants on the backside for a brief split second, but that was the only contact in the entire play, which is not pass interference.
No, they called it pass interference.
And that was way early
but he didn't fall down because he made contact with a defensive player.
Right.
He went down because he made contact with a teammate, and that was just a trash call.
Yes, I agree, and that cost Seattle 4 points right there. Yeah,
I mean, they lost by 1. So there's that, but there was also there's just a lot of the first down because of Leonard Williams jumping off sides. There's the Rams got 5 first downs by penalty.
Yeah, and it's
They only
been
had
similar to
15 first downs
in a
in the
couple of
entire
other games.
game.
The Cincinnati game was similar to that. I wanted to say too that Geno Smith was sacked with 10 seconds left in the third quarter, left the game. Pete Carroll just reported just a bit ago that it's a tricep injury, not an elbow, and that he's got a great chance to make it back on Thursday, which is good news for the Seahawks to have any chance whatsoever, because we saw what Drew Lock did with his limited opportunities in this game after Geno went out, and it wasn't pretty. I think that contributed to the loss as well. Just having Geno out, I know
Honestly,
Geno was struggling there a little bit.
Geno wasn't doing anything.
Tell you, I disagree with you, Keith, and I went back and I watched the game again, and I just finished it like 15 minutes before this show. And in the first half, they looked good. There were some drives that got stopped.
Great.
Yeah, and then they went through a stretch in the third quarter, as they sometimes do. But it doesn't discount the fact that he's the best opportunity we've got to win the game.
I'm just saying that if you look
proved that when he came in, gutsy thing to come back in and try to get this team willed to a field goal range, and he did that job. He did that, and so I got to give him credit for sure.
Yeah, I'm just saying that when you look at it and you say, what happened in like 3 or 4 drives before his injury, and then you look at the 2 drives that Drew Lock played in, and you're going to find that Drew Lock was not a downgrade. He was terrible, but he wasn't a downgrade. That's what Geno did in those same 3 or 4 drives before. The only difference was that Geno's interceptable pass got dropped, whereas Lock's got caught. That's the only significant difference between Drew Lock versus the 3 or 4 drives right before Geno's injury.
One thing that we can agree on is that the quarterback play is going to dictate that we're going to have a new quarterback next year, I think.
Oh, yeah, you have to. I think you look at this and you go, if the Geno Smith of the first 10 games last year was playing this season, this team is probably a 1-loss team, maybe a 2-loss team, because they just got waxed by a couple of games. So they're a 2-loss team right now, and they're sitting, as the number 1 seed in the NFC, but they haven't had that level of quarterback play. They've had mediocre quarterback play throughout the entire year, and they're a 4-loss team because of it.
I just think it's a little bit more complex than that. There's
lots of things going on, but you can't tell me if the Geno Smith from the first 10 or so games of last year had been playing this year. This team has only lost 2 games. They've only lost the week 1 and Baltimore. And
it's only going to get worse because our opponents are about to increase significantly in quality. So, the frustrating part about this game, is we lost to the Rams. I mean, come on. And in the first half, the offensive line was blocking well. We picked up some key third downs. And most of the third downs we picked up were in the first half. Mm-hmm. I thought Charbonnet looked good, in a couple of runs that he had and he caught the ball on a key 4th down that made the first down. I just thought Charbonnet looked really sharp in the first half. In the second half, he was almost non-existent. There was a good mix of run pass, it wasn't as lopsided as 60-40 as the way it turned out. And in large portions of this game, it was, running the ball 70-80% of the time, or passing 80% of the time and just running 20%. I get it. We were struggling a little bit, but that's just not a good mix. Quick throws, intermediate, long routes, all that stuff. Kent Walker was involved before he got hurt. Zach Charbonnet, DK Metcalf had both long and short passes caught in that first half. JSN looked good. No drops in the first half. And then the wheels just came off. That third quarter was kind of a push, obviously. No points scored. But it was just ugly. I mean, the way that we lost was just ugly. Like the defense didn't show up. The gave them opportunities. We had all the penalties, and then the offense disappeared. We scored 3 points the rest of the game. And I don't know what's going on. It's like they get that lead, and it's Pete Carroll, and we've done this for a long time. He just kind of gets conservative. They just kind of, I don't know what it is. And
part of it though is, okay, so after Walker gets hurt, just in the first half, which you're saying they played well in, Zach Charbonnet 10 attempts for 33 yards, 3.3 average. That's not going to get it done. And that's why they went away from the run, because the run was,
but you still got to run the ball.
Run was ineffective. You look at Gino was 13
the big
out of 18
picture though is you got to be able to run the ball, even if you're not, even if you're getting 3.3 yards per carry, you have got to run the ball to give Gino an opportunity to throw better. Just the playbook opens up for you when you do that. Here's the deal too. Shane Waldron calls a running play on third and short, 3 yards or less, 32% of the time. Only 2 offensive coordinators in the entire league run less in that situation. Seattle is one of the worst teams in the NFL on third and short. And I think that's one of the reasons. We are just not committed to running the ball. We say it, and we drafted 2 guys high in the draft, and we're not. We're either piss poor at it as far as blocking, or Shane Waldron is not in the moment. I think he's overvaluing the pass and undervaluing our opportunities to really establish a consistency and moving the chains and third down conversions and so forth with running. I just do personally. I get it. The stats say that we ran the ball 3.3. I just think it's more to it than that.
It was 3.3 in the first half when the offense was working. It was 3.1 overall. The offense, like the running game, was not working. So, I mean, that's really what it came down to. And they were, Gino only got sacked twice. And 22 of 34, that's not bad. Like that's pretty good. So, honestly, like they went with what was working, and what was working was not the running game in this game. And I think that is a problem, because this offense is designed to work when the running game is working.
That's exactly what I'm talking about.
But Phil Haynes was in there playing, and Jason Peters was in there playing.
Did you see Phil Haynes get beat on Aaron Donald's rush to sack Geno Smith and injure his elbow?
Yeah.
Did you?
And neither of those guys are getting it done as a run blocker. And Phil Haynes isn't getting it done as a pass blocker most of the time. You're starting to, I mean, it's pretty telling that the Rams would get Seattle into third down and then blitz. They would blitz every freaking third down, and Seattle could not take advantage of it because they simply couldn't pick up a blitz.
And they failed to run routes that would pick up third downs. Like I watched 3 separate plays on just the game I just watched again. 3 separate plays on third down in the third quarter, where every route run by Seattle, there was a running back behind the line of scrimmage out in the flat that was covered each time by a linebacker. And then all 3 wide receivers plus a tight end ran routes way beyond the third down mark in order to reach that third down conversion.
I mean, that's a problem.
And
then
3 separate times.
There were 3 straight third downs, 1 by Geno and 2 by Locke, where on third and whatever, they're throwing the ball 30 yards downfield.
Yeah. Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Now, one of them, like the first one when Locke came in right off the bench, he actually threw the ball to an open guy who just simply didn't make the cut that you'd expect him to make. He didn't drift in on the post. He just kept running. He threw it right to the right spot.
I think he did. He did.
JSN
he threw it to a spot that He's threw it to the right spot. Yes, he did. I agree with that. But still, you only need to pick up.
There was one that Geno just really underthrew Tyler Lockett. It should have been an easy big play because he had a full step, and instead it was underthrown. And
JSN got a big, huge underthrown ball in that game.
And then there was the interception. You've got but there were 3 straight third downs where it's 3rd and 5 or less, and they're throwing deep. And that's a problem. You can't do. I mean, you go get the
especially at this point in the season, Keith. Week 11, whatever it was. We have these issues. We have these known issues about converting third downs, and you still have these issues with running routes that have low percentage of completion when you just need 4 or 5 yards, or whatever. Even if it's 3rd and 8 or whatever, you're still, it's crazy. So Seattle's just not that good. You want proof? Seattle's 22-22 over the last 3 seasons. We are a 500 ball club.
Well, okay. One of those years was the wheels fell off year when Wilson got hurt and the cupboard was bare.
Okay, we were 9-8 last year.
That's a lot of losses.
We're 6-4 this year and about to go through a gauntlet where we're probably going to end up losing all 4.
But last year they made the playoffs and exceeded expectations, and this year they're currently 6-4. So, yeah, they're about to go through a 4-game stretch, and if they lose all 4, no one will be surprised. And they end up 6-8, and then hoping to win the last 3 to get to 9-8 and hope to sneak into the playoffs, which they can do. Those 3 games are all winnable. But
agreed. But you're psychologically screwed up.
Yeah. I'm just saying that this is a rebuilding team. It's been a rebuilding team for last year and this year. Whether the team thinks it can compete or not, and whether they're trying to compete and all of that, it's still a rebuilding roster. And they need to finish the rebuild by finding a quarterback. I think that part needs to be said. And they need to finish the rebuild by finding, or at least letting the young players that are the future of the offensive line play.
Here's the deal, though.
Haynes was bad in this game.
Yeah.
He was just bad.
Here's the deal. We were really close. Myers makes that kick. We're 7-4. This is his 4th game in a row. Fourth make of the game. If he makes it 3rd over 50 yards, it would have been Geno's 4th game-winning drive of the season. So we're close, but we're just not getting it done. I don't want to be dramatic in saying that we're just a piss poor team. We're a 500 team over 3 seasons, even though that's the case. And I'm frustrated, and I think everybody is. And people wanted, rightly so, are invested in this team emotionally and everything, financially, everything else. Want this team to be good. Want this team to be good today. And there's just certain limitations on this team that are prohibiting this team from being better week in, week out. And when you lose to a team that's coming in at 3 wins, it makes it even harder because it's inexcusable.
This is a flawed team. This is a team that relies way too much on an 86-year-old middle linebacker who is one of the greatest to ever put on a helmet, but simply is slow at this point in his career, and does a lot of great things, but is slow at this point in his career. And teams are starting to take advantage of that. This is a team that, does not have good safety play. And this is a Pete Carroll defense, right? Good safety play is more important to Pete Carroll's brand of football than it is for a lot of of other teams, but this team is not getting good safety play from either or any of its safeties at the moment.
Seattle's just not getting good play at all. I mean, Seattle's defense recorded 1 sack for 5 yards and had 3 quarterback hits the entire game. I mean, what's going on with the pass rush against the offensive line that have been struggling coming into this game?
Well, I mean, Matt Stafford was throwing on the run, running away from guys all game. He only threw for 190 yards. They only got 1 sack, but they got pressure. They made him move off his spot.
We held the Rams to 276 yards. And 2 for 9 on third downs, 276 yards of the Rams. Seattle didn't play bad. They just allowed scoring drive of 68 and 75 yards and 10 points in the fourth quarter.
Which, that was penalties, because on both of those drives, the defense did what it needed to do to get off the field. And then, but penalties kept them on the field. And then on the touchdown drive, they actually succeeded on third down twice to get off the field, but penalties kept them on the field. And one of those penalties was absolute trash. And the other one was really ticky-tack. But, I mean, it was a penalty, but it was not called in most games. And so, honestly,
the Rams themselves had 9 penalties for 92 yards as well. I mean, the officials, man, they went out for steak dinner after that game.
Yeah. If they get paid per penalty, man, those guys made out.
So I got a question for you. Why has Noah Fant only have 10 yards receiving the last 3 games combined?
That is a really good question, because it makes no sense. I mean, I know
he's one of our best weapons. Run after a catch, big receiving tight end. Well, my goodness, talk about a guy that's going to leave in free agency this year just because he didn't want to sign with the Seahawks anymore.
I mean, he had a great year last year, and then this year they're not using him. They're not throwing him the ball. And they like Will Disley had a bigger game this game, but he also was part of the reason why they failed on one of those third downs, because the ball hit him in the hands when he was wide open, and he literally just dropped it. It went straight down to the ground. It's just inexcusable. I don't know. It's hard to it's hard to put it all together, but
and that's it right there. It's hard to put it all together. In the NFL, it is, and the Seahawks aren't. On any given Sunday, the running game isn't working. The pass blocking seems to work. Then it breaks down later in the game for in a key play. The defense doesn't rush the passer for some inexplicable reason during an entire game. I get the fact that Stafford eluded the pass rush several different times and completed throws and so forth. He had a great game, I thought. It's tough. I mean, you got players like Witherspoon that continue to show up week in, week out. I think that's one of the highlights of the year so far, is having him emerge.
Him and Boye Mafe have been. Witherspoon and Mafe have been the story of Seattle's defense.
I mean, Witherspoon had 8 tackles, 1 for loss, a pass breakup, 3 quarterback pressures, and the only sack by Seattle's defense.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I mean,
I do want to say Bobby Wagner, even though he's slow as he is the 3rd player to record 100 tackles in 12 straight seasons.
Yeah.
So good for him. Want to mention that.
No, and he, that's more than just, he's played a long time. He's been fantastic for a very long time. He's slow this year, and we're seeing that in coverage where guys are getting past him and getting open, and he's having a hard time getting to the ball to make plays. But against the run, he is still one of the best that puts on a helmet. And that's not a career thing. That's a right now thing. He's still really good against the run, but against the pass, his lack of speed is showing up every week. And that is what it is. I mean, you have guys that, you've got younger guys that need to be able to make up for that, because he brings so much to the table. You're not taking him off the field. but he's also not going to be able to keep up with tight ends and running backs the way he used to.
Yeah, he's still, I saw a press conference by the defensive coordinator, Clint Hurt, just a day ago, 2 days ago. And he was talking about Bobby Wagner and just saying, when we signed him, we hadn't planned on using him as much as we're using him now. I mean, we can lean on him because he's a professional, but we were going to monitor his snap counts, essentially. And, Bobby Wagner, week in, week out, is playing 100% of the snaps. So, which is amazing, at his age.
He's genuinely one of the best linebackers to ever play the game. And that's not a Homer-ish kind of thing. You look at him compared to, any of the greats, Brian Urlacher or Dick Butkus, or just any of the great middle linebackers that have ever played. Put him up against any of them statistically, and what they do on the field and as a captain and as a leader and all the pre-snap stuff, you're not going to find a guy that's better. You're just not.
First ballot Hall of Famer.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. He's one of the best to ever put on a helmet. And I mean, but as a team, you got to recognize that he's not the guy he was as far as he used to be one of the fastest linebackers in the NFL. He's not. He's currently one of the slowest linebackers in the NFL. So freaking what? He does so many other things great. He's worth putting on the field anyway, but you have got to figure out how to help him, because he can't keep up with the tight ends and stuff anymore.
The guy that's supposed to help him, Jordan Brooks, take over for him, essentially had his stat line was one solo tackle. The end.
What and why? What happened with that?
Isn't that crazy?
Like, he's a guy. He's the guy with the franchise record for tackles, because he broke broke that record, right?
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah, I don't know. I haven't looked at the defense as closely as I did the offense this year, or this game. So a couple of injury updates. Ken Walker looks like it's going to be a while. He's got an oblique strain that Pete Carroll called legit. We all know that word is code for he's going to be out for a while.
Yeah. I mean, if it was like a knee injury, that's when you were worried about amputation.
That's Pete said he couldn't do anything, couldn't move it, couldn't hardly move it. Pete said he's not a candidate to go on IR yet. They need more information. So that tells me that they probably need more information to put him on IR. But
yeah, Jordan Brooks played 99% of the snaps, 66 out of 67, and he had one tackle. I mean, this is the guy with the franchise record for tackles in a year.
You set it up perfectly as like, Bobby Wagner needs some help. And I'm like, yeah, the guy that's supposed to help him had one tackle in this game.
No, I'm saying that this is the franchise record holder for tackles in a season. You look at the list, the greatest number of tackles per season in Seahawk history, and you're going to see Jordan Brooks 1, Bobby Wagner is like 2 through 5, Jordan Brooks 6, and then Bobby Wagner is like 7, 8, and 9. Like, that's who we're talking about here. And Brooks had one tackle. Like, nothing about Brooks's career suggests that's a possibility.
I know. It's like sleepwalking through a game is basically what that says. I don't know. I'll have to look at it again and figure that out.
Did you know that Frank Clark played in this game?
I did see Frank Clark's jersey out there. Yeah.
He played 31 snaps in this game.
Yeah, he did. He played a lot.
And honestly, I did not know if he played or not, because he never impacted a single play.
Yeah. Well, he may have impacted a play, but he didn't impact the stat line for sure.
He didn't impact a play in a meaningful way where I noticed his presence. How's that?
That's true. That's very true.
I have not watched the All 22 yet because it's not out. It won't come out until tomorrow morning.
I haven't either.
But honestly, like,
I just watched the game again so I could get so I could get a general sense of like how I really felt after kind of going through the emotional roller coaster of Sunday. And you're right. He did not make his presence known or felt, and you could say that about a lot of different players. Julian Love, I thought, had a horrendous pass interference call that was legitimate on him.
Oh yeah, that was
on a play that was probably wasn't even going to be caught at all. And I don't even know what he was doing on that play.
Played well this year. I was talking about the safety play. Quandre Diggs hasn't played well this year. Julian Love.
He led the team in tackles. That's probably what was going on with Jordan Brooks, is all those tackles were way beyond the line of scrimmage.
Jamal Adams. Did he have a stat in this game?
He was out. He was out with a knee injury. Play. Correct.
Okay, because I did not see him in any way in this game, but that would be why he didn't play. That makes way more sense.
And Julian Love was playing a little more in this game.
He played 100% of the defensive snaps.
Yeah, Julian Love played okay, closer to the line of scrimmage, but in pass coverage he was not great. A couple more things. Jarek Reed left the game with a knee injury. Carroll said he's going to miss some time. That seemed like more of a candidate for the IR, to be completely honest. A couple of roster moves I want to talk about. Kobe Bryant was designated for return. That means he's got a 21-day window to be activated onto the roster. We'll see what happens there. He wasn't playing well before his injury, and he's been struggling. So I'm not sure if he can add to this defense or not. Time will tell. And then I wanted to mention too, something that I had just learned doing the research for the show today, was that Jake Curhan was cut on Saturday to make room for Jason Peters on the active 53. And he ended up clearing waivers, and they brought him back onto the practice squad. So I was not aware of that. I usually don't do too much Seahawk news after Friday, before the game anyway. Injury report, and that's about it. And so that's kind of surprised me a little bit when I saw that today. I didn't even know.
Well, I was thinking about that because you told me about that right before we hit record, and it's been knocking around my brain the whole time since then. And essentially, he lost his job to Jason Peters. He's also in the final, he signed a 1 year deal. But you don't want,
Jason Peters is not the future.
No, but Jake Curhan's on a 1 year deal. So keeping him around doesn't change anything for next year, right? And so if Peters is going to be the guy going forward at right tackle or backup right tackle once Abe Lucas comes back, there's no spot for Curhan. That is a roster spot that you can open if you get him under the practice squad and can therefore, sign him to a futures deal and keep him around so that maybe he can try again next year. Great. If he goes off somewhere else, he just lost his job to a 41-year-old.
Mm-hmm. This happens to be pretty good
either.
Yeah. No, I agree. He struggled this year in pass protection, quite a bit out there on the edge and then inside a little bit. I just think that he's, you don't want to give up on a kid. Obviously, though, he's been around the system for, what is this, his third season now, and just really hasn't progressed to the point where obviously he's starting and taking over and making impact. So just not sure how I feel about him, but it surprised me a little bit that they kind of put him out there on waivers. I guess
typically you keep the younger guy, but he started as a rookie for about half the season and looked like a good run blocker who couldn't pass block to save his life. And then last year he got beat out pretty much instantaneously by Abe Lucas, who they weren't trying to give the job to. The team wanted Curhan to win the job so that way they didn't have two rookies starting at both tackles. And Abe Lucas was just by far the better player, and then came out and was by far the team's best offensive lineman last year. And then Lucas got hurt this year, so you get Curhan a chance to get out and play again, and he didn't look good. He still can't pass block. And then he hurt his ankle, so then he was even slower than normal, and then it was really bad. So I get the team being like, okay, year 3, his contract is up at the end of the year. Do we bring him back? I don't know. he's going to be a restricted free agent. They're certainly not going to tender him. So he's going to have to either come back on a 1 year like vet minimum deal, or he's going to move on, and they're going to move on.
Yeah, they'll probably end up bringing him back and giving him another opportunity to make the team, see if he had some improvement in the offseason and so forth. That's what they usually do in these sorts of situations.
Yeah,
with
because
young players
unless
like
another team if another team wants him, then they will do what's necessary to procure his services. But
yeah,
nobody's offering Jake Curran more than
no.
minimum.
No.
So does he want to make the minimum in Seattle, or does he want to make the minimum somewhere else? And honestly, like, it doesn't matter that much. We had higher hopes for him because he did so well as a run blocker as an undrafted rookie, but he is not a better player today than he was then. And we're in year 3. He should be a significantly better player today than he was as a rookie. I like the guy. Yeah. I like the kid. I liked when he was playing. Like, I thought he was part of the team getting off to a good start because of his run blocking, but his pass blocking was bad enough that it got him benched. And now he's not on the roster.
Let's end the show with your thoughts on Ken Walker's injury and Kenny McIntosh coming back onto the roster potentially. His window of opportunity to come back onto the roster is open. I would imagine they now sign him to the 53, and you've got a trio now of Dallas, McIntosh, and Charbonnet. How do you feel about that?
I don't feel great about it. I like Zach Charbonnet, and he's a grinder. But we saw in this game that the offense was better with Ken Walker. He's just a more complete player. DJ Dallas is a kick returner and a guy that can, come in and do some nice things in small quantities. You don't need to feed him the ball in order for him to get stuff done, but he's not a guy that's going to change a game. And, Kenny McIntosh was a 7th round pick for a reason. He's not a guy that is going to run between the tackles worth a damn, and he doesn't have any speed. So yeah, he can catch the ball out of the backfield, but is he fast enough to do anything with it? I don't like where we're at as a running back. Ken Walker is part of what made the offense work. He's one of the better players on offense this year. And now he's gone, or at least gone for the next few weeks. He won't be playing this week against San Francisco. We'll leave it at that, because
yeah. And I don't know where
it's bad.
I don't know where Kenny McIntosh is as far as pass protection, pass blocking. Do they trust him even to be in there on third downs
and that's
to receive the ball out of the backfield?
I don't know. Third downs.
Yeah. And so we'll see. We'll have to see. You got to go with the guys you go with and that are on your roster. And we're in this situation, and it is what it is. It is what it is. And the character will be built in the next 4 weeks, and it starts this Thursday against the 49ers at home. And I'm just hoping, here's what I'm hoping for, Keith. I'm just hoping for a really good, solid showing, and maybe some surprises. I want to be surprised. I want to have this team shock me as far as how they show up, how they contend, how they want to compete. I want to see the heart and soul of the team. I think that's where we're at in the season. It's like they're 6-4. They're on the precipice of being a pretty decent team with an opportunity, or a team that completely falls apart. And I want to see the team that really wants to compete, that wants it. I'd like to see that. That's what I'm hoping for out of this next game. The win or loss, it is what it is. I've been looking at this schedule now, this part of the schedule for all season, all off season. Before the season started, this was going to be the tell of how things were going to go. So I'm prepared mentally for us to lose all 4 games. I just am.
Mm-hmm.
Do I want us to? Do I want to win all 4? Yeah, I do. Absolutely. I'll be rooting for this team to win all 4 games.
Absolutely.
But we need to figure out a way to do it.
We expect it to happen.
Right. Yeah.
Right now, I expect this team to, I would say, best case scenario of what's realistically possible will be a split with the 49ers and to beat the Cowboys.
I expect them to win the next 2 games, and I'm not really even kidding.
You expect them to?
I expect them to come out and like play hard and put themselves in a position to win. I don't know if they're going to win. I expect them to play hard and be in a position to win those games because they're well coached. If anything you can say about Pete Carroll, whatever. One thing he does is he gets his teams ready to play on big games and teams in games that they need to play well and win. And
I don't know. I would have said that was true. A true set of conditions for this Rams game. They needed to play well and win.
Yeah.
And instead they had a ton of penalties, looked awful, and lost.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed. All right. Let's get out of here. Let's flush this thing. We've been saying that too many times this year. But here we are. And let's come back. We'll have a pregame show for you probably tomorrow or the next day at the latest because we play Thursday night. Thanksgiving night would be fun to gather all the friends and family and watch the game together in the evening. I think that's a 5:20 start time or 5:30 start time.
Well, the best thing is if the
fun.
game does go south, you can just submit to the turkey coma that is going to want to take over, and you'll be okay.
There you go. Yeah,
I hope the game doesn't go in that way, but it's a possibility. And if it does happen, just have another slice of pie and take a nap.
This is a revenge game from way, way back for the 49ers, when Richard Sherman and Russell Wilson ate turkey on the San Francisco 49er logo in the middle of their field from quite a while ago. And I fear that. I don't want the 49ers to come into our house and have anything to do with that.
There's not a single player on,
right.
I think either team.
Bobby Wagner.
Okay, you're right, Bobby Wagner. But he left and then came back. But I think he's the only player on either team that played in that game. So I'm not concerned about that.
I know. It's just it's a Bill thing. It's just me. All right, let's get out of here. Find Keith on Twitter at Mars NFL. You can find me at NW Seahawk. The show is Seahawks Playbook Podcast. Find us on your favorite podcast platform and YouTube, and hit the subscribe button when you do. Share it with your friends and family, and leave a great comment and rating if you can. So until next time, go Hawks.
Go Hawks.
Seahawks Playbook Podcast listeners, thanks for joining us for another edition of the show. You can find us on Twitter. Bill is at NW Seahawk, Keith is at Myers NFL, and the show is at Hawks Playbook. You can listen and subscribe to the show at SeahawksPlaybook.com.